Hi, everyone. Hope you're all well. Welcome back to another session of Networks Tech Talk. I'm your host, Derek Johnston. Today in this episode, we're addressing network orchestration, one of the unsung heroes of the mobile networks that we all come to rely on a daily basis. Specifically, in today's session, we will unpack what is network orchestration and dive into how the solution helps network operators manage the lifecycle services from deployment to service assurance. To provide us with insights into orchestration, I'm joined by my colleague, Robbie Martinez, subject matter expert in this area. He is actively managing a team of folks here at Samsung that's responsible for a commercial end-to-end orchestration solution from sales to deployment. Hey, Robbie, how you doing? It's great to see you.
Good. Good to see you, Derek.
Good. Thanks for being here, man. Appreciate it. Before I hand it over to you, Robbie, just a couple of housekeeping items for our viewers. We're going to have a brief question and answer at the end of today's session. And then for more information on orchestration and automation, there'll be a link to our website down below in the interface. So with that, Robbie, I will turn it over to you. Look forward to talking to you on the back end.
Thanks, Derek. So let's start by kind of defining what is network orchestration. So when you talk about deploying a 5G network or really any virtualized network, you come upon the concept of orchestrating the network, spinning up the functions that comprise a given network to produce a service that an operator is trying to produce. And there's several things that go into that concept. When you're thinking about deploying a service, you have to design the service. What functions do you need as part of that service? You need to size it. How big do those functions need to be? How many of the functions do you need? Then you need to deploy. You need to go spin up those workloads across a variety of data centers. You need to configure those workloads, configure them relative to the service that you're trying to provide. And then finally, you need to assure those, make sure they stay up, make sure that they're providing the quality of service that you're expecting. All of this can be facilitated through orchestration. Orchestration is a very broad word. It means a lot of things. It means everything that I already described. But centralizing the orchestration and the control of your network is a very important aspect of operating a 5G network, for example. So we're going to dig in a little bit on what Samsung's offering for orchestration is, and we'll start here. So the Samsung Orchestrator is the Samsung Cloud Orchestrator, or SCO. I'll refer to it as SCO, and basically it provides a single pane of glass into your network from an orchestration standpoint. And it has a portal at the top, if you look at the center image, and then it's got its lifecycle management, its end-to-end lifecycle management of the VNFs and CNFs that it is managing, and it incorporates a network slicing component as well. And then an application-specific manager is down below. So some of the things or functions, primary functions that the SCO does is it can actually install the container platform for you, the Kubernetes environment. It can go in and do that. And of course, instantiating, scaling, and upgrading the VNFs and CNFs, and then providing the visibility into the infrastructure on which your VNFs and CNFs are running. And on the network slicing side of things, there's this notion of vRAN and core network slicing, as well as the end-to-end slicing we'll get into a little bit later. And then, of course, monitoring the QoS, QoE of a given slice. And then should any reconfiguration need to be done, that mechanism can be generated from the SCO as well. So we talk about the orchestrator benefits of what Samsung brings. Easy operation, a friendly GUI, and open APIs is key to being able to operate your network, whether you have folks manually instantiating the workloads or if it's done through an API in an autonomous manner from the OSS BSS. The APIs are open and ready to do that. Rapid deployment, the SCO is a cloud native function itself and can be deployed easily and configured easily as well. When you get into a multi-platform and a multi-cloud type of an environment, integrating with a variety of different container solution or CAS providers as well as OpenStack is important. So the SCO has the ability to integrate to any variety of platforms that you can run your workloads on. It's flexible and scalable. I mentioned it's modular. The SCO itself can scale, and it can be deployed in any manner, any combination of services that you want to include in the SCO. Incorporating things like AI, ML for automation, using cutting-edge technology for that. Look, the network is sort of a living and breathing organism. It can grow, it can expand. It's very elastic. So using data from the network to grow and shrink where necessary is a key benefit for any orchestration solution. Finally, stability. You want your orchestration to be there when you need it. We've been providing orchestration to our customers for several years now. So we have a very stable solution for our operators. So you talk about the lifecycle management. That's just kind of a very basic. I covered it already, but the VNF CNF deployment is there, and then as you expand upon this notion of an elastic, dynamic network, you bring in things like automated scaling and a seamless software upgrade and automated healing, all driven from the orchestration. And network slice management evolution today. We have a RAN NSSMF. That's NSSMF is a network slice subnet management function. That is our 3GPP defined management function for network slicing. The end-to-end slicing is coming next year, including the core NSSMF, and then the NSMF, which is our network slicing management function, is 3GPP defined. That's our end-to-end. And then finally, as I mentioned before, bringing in analytics and incorporating the ORAN non-real-time RIC entity as well. Let's get a little bit of a look at how SCO sort of fits into the overall network. So as you can see here in blue, the SCO brings in the end-to-end orchestration, as I mentioned, and the network slice manager as well. Sitting northbound of that is your OSS BSS, and that's where it would take orders from OSS BSS and then also provide data points northbound to the various functions inside of OSS BSS. And then down below, the orchestration would integrate with your virtualization layer, meaning your OpenStack or your Kubernetes down below. And then it can be used to deploy the Samsung VNF workloads, third-party VNF workloads, as well as the CNF from Samsung and third-party as well. So the key concepts of the SCO, the key design concepts are really four critical items. And we start with the structure. The combinable structure basically is the kind of the microservices nature of the SCO itself, and then being able to deploy it in whichever flavor you choose. You can pick from any of the underlying services and microservices to spin up whatever version of the SCO you want. Unified approach basically means that we're going to support both VNFs and CNFs from one single SCO instance, supporting the lifecycle management of the VNFs and the CNFs. Adaptability. So in this kind of ecosystem of a multi-cloud, multi-vendor, there's various integration points from orchestration to things like the OSS and the cloud management platforms and the CNFs, VNFs themselves, the management systems, or even an SDN controller. So each of those integration points requires some adaptability, some kind of plug-in interface. So the infrastructure and the modeling is there to take a custom interface and translate that to the native model that's embedded in the SCO itself. And then finally, operability. So all of our functions which encompass a vast network, a vast 5G network, or even a slice of that network are deployed on hardware. So the orchestrator has the ability to interface to that hardware over IPMI or SNMP and pull information to be able to make critical decisions based on specific faults that might have happened in the network. So diving a little more deeply into each of those aspects, we'll start with structure. And I'm not going to get into all of the services, but there are about 15 major services with more than 100 microservices, which make up our SCO. And it starts with the unified portal or the open API service, as I mentioned before. And then you have things like service orchestration to manage the life cycle of your VNFs and your CNFs, or the network service itself. And resource orchestration, which is just simply managing the physical and virtual infrastructure. And then things like catalog service to catalog your descriptors, et cetera. So each of these services has its own role and can be deployed or not deployed depending on what's needed for that specific application. And again, the multimode unified, the multimode of VNF and CNF, basically you can deploy a VNF-only deployment, a CNF-only deployment, or some combination of the two. The Samsung Cloud Orchestrator would interface directly to your OpenStack or your Kubernetes as needed. And of course, we bring in the VNF manager and the CNF manager as well. I talked a bit about the adaptability, but just a little bit more deeply, some of the functions that can enable the adaptability are things like a descriptor converter. So the SCO provides a descriptor converter where we take the descriptor files for a third-party VNFs or third-party CNFs and translate those to the specific format that is consumed by the SCO. And of course, workflows. So each integration, each vendor that we integrate with has a unique workflow. So we produce these plugins, these adapters, which emulate that workflow, abstract that for the backend core within the SCO. And then the infrastructure manager. So I talked a bit about this already, but just diving a little more deeply into it. So what this can do is it can provide even a three-dimensional view of your network, of your data centers, and a view of each rack where a given server, if it fails, or a port, or a switch, or storage, if it fails, you'll see it highlighted in red, for example. But the cool thing about what the orchestration does is it pulls this data, it recognizes the failures, and it can correlate them with all of our virtualized deployments, or VNFs and CNFs, to see which specific VNF CNFs are impacted. And being able to do that can allow the operations folks to act a little bit more quickly on that. Just giving a little bit more detail of the infrastructure manager and what it does. It does rack management, so provides alarms and statistics for each rack at each site. And we're talking about a network that could span several data centers, and having a view of each data center and each hardware module in each data center is a pretty nice benefit. Host inventory management. So this is just knowing all of your hardware that's out there, the vendor and model, the CPU, memory, disk, port. All that information is visualized in the infrastructure manager portion of your SCO. Host monitoring, and this is just simply monitoring the health of the hardware, CPU, memory, disk, network usages, fan speed, power, and then fault management. So whenever anomalies are detected in that infrastructure, being able to report quickly on that is a key benefit for the infrastructure manager. Oh, I'm going backwards. Okay. Apologies. Okay, network slicing architecture. So I mentioned that the SCO provides the network slicing capabilities. We'll dig in a little more deeply here. The network slicing management function is something defined by 3GPP, and the network slice subnet management function is also defined by 3GPP. So what the SCO does is it can incorporate that into our global service orchestration and our domain service orchestration, and have that network slicing management function embedded inside of the orchestration solution. So we could field orders from a CSMF sitting in the customer's OSS and go handle the orchestration part to go deploy the functions which would comprise that slice. And then you can see here the DSO has a 3GPP interface into the network slice selection function, the NSSF, in the core SBA. And then the RAN can talk ORAN down to the radio controller here. So these are the core management capabilities that are provided or are defined by 3GPP for network slicing. And they are native to the Samsung orchestration solution. And then when you talk about designing a network slice and how 3GPP defines this notion of a network slice template, network slice subnet template, these are the modeling for the network slice that you're going to deploy. But from a service orchestration, network function orchestration standpoint, Etsy defines the standard definition there. So one cool thing that the Samsung orchestration does is it correlates those two templates and those two files to allow for a seamless instantiation deployment of the network slice. So that's all I have on the SCO, the Samsung Cloud Orchestration solution. So I'll pass it back to Derek for some Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you, Robbie. That was very intense. No, I really appreciate it. Hey, one of the things that came up as you were going through this is in terms of network slicing. Network slicing is this feature, this function that people have, the industry's talked a lot about in terms of revenue, new revenue models and capabilities for operators. It sounded for me like it was like network slicing is a feature or a capability that lives within orchestration, the domain of orchestration. Is that accurate?
Yeah, well, I would kind of look at it a little bit of a different way. I would say that you need orchestration to realize the benefits of network slicing. But when you have a slice, if you're going to go define the slice and size this slice and kind of create this template of the various slice subnets and figure out what this slice is going to look like for the particular service that you're trying to provide, you need orchestration to go out there and instantiate that slice, spin it up, for lack of a better word, and then do everything that's required by that. Each slice will come with a service level agreement, an SLA, that you need to adhere to. So orchestration can facilitate the configuring the functions within that slice to accommodate that SLA, and even things like closed loop assurance. If you have some anomaly within the network, orchestration can detect that and go either scale out or go configure certain parameters within a function of that slice to better serve or better meet that SLA. So orchestration is a key enabler of network slicing.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Another element is this notion of Samsung has a leadership position, right, in virtualized RAN, right? We have the first kind of commercial, fully virtualized RAN. Is the notion that we've developed all those network functions, push them to the to the software realm. Does that help in terms of making orchestration, either deployments or operations, more efficient? Kind of a sense of how it plays into that.
Yeah, I think so. I think having a fully virtualized RAN brings a lot of flexibility to the network, or it rather enables some of what orchestration can accomplish. Some of the benefits of orchestration. So the more virtualized your overall network is, including the RAN, you will reap the benefits that orchestration can provide. So things like zero-touch deployment. When you're talking about deploying the VDU, virtualized DU at scale, you're talking thousands of instances of this VDU, right? So how do you go deploy this thing in a zero-touch manner? Hey, I just want to go, spin up several DUs. Well, there's a lot of work that needs to happen at the back end to make that happen, so that you truly are zero touch when you deploy and you manage those functions. And then just further, automated provisioning of the RANs at such a large scale. And then the elements themselves, having your RAN be able to scale and be able to heal itself, those are key aspects. And again, orchestration is in the middle of all of that.
Excellent, excellent. On a related note, right? Obviously, there's been this migration, if you will, right? Started with the core of moving a lot of the telco functions to the cloud, right? So where, I know again, orchestration is just a portion of it, but where can you give folks a sense for where Samsung is in terms of it being kind of cloud ready? Referenced it a lot, the CNFs and the VNFs and stuff like that, containerized. But where are we in terms of enabling the kind of the various ecosystem and architecture choices that MNOs have out there, whether they're going kind of moving fully to virtualization or just partially and going cloud based?
Yeah, so you can kind of look at it two ways. So the SEO itself is cloud ready, it's cloud native. So I've described how it's comprised of several microservices and it's container based and it runs on top of Kubernetes itself. So the SEO itself it's modular, it's scalable. So it is cloud ready itself. But then I mentioned earlier when you talk about this notion of multi-vendor and multi-cloud, so the operators are going to be deploying, or even are today deploying, their networks across a variety of different types of data centers, whether it's a private data center, an on-prem, the far edge, or even the public cloud. The Samsung orchestration solution can interface to all of those deployment types. So that allows it to be ready for these kind of multi-cloud hybrid networks that operators are trying to deploy today.
Got it. Awesome, thank you. All right, and then the last question we had here was, what are some of the challenges that the network operators are facing to, as they introduce orchestration into their networks?
Yeah, so I see two big challenges today with bringing orchestration to a network, and the sheer amount of work that is required at the front end for an automated type of deployment of several functions. So it starts with planning and collaboration with all of the vendors, and having the vendors design the CNFs with orchestration in mind. Those can all help with that, but there's a lot of work that happens at the front end. So similar to that is kind of a second aspect, is just the notion of time to market. So when you're deploying virtualized RAN services, these are the revenue generators for the operators, getting that 5G network up. So orchestration can help enable and if you can automate the deployment of these functions, orchestration is right in the middle of it. But again, there's a lot of planning and a lot of work that has to happen at the front end. So keeping up with the time to market of these 5G network functions, orchestration having to keep up with that is a huge challenge.
Yeah, I'll bet. Awesome. Well, hey, Robbie, thank you so much for for your insights today. This has been I found it super interesting and really helpful. So really appreciate your time.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, thank you. All right, everyone. So thanks again for joining us on Networks Tech Talk. Stay tuned for upcoming episodes, as well as links to important content below. And follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone.